Wonderful. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to launch Illustrator and continue working on earning new skills in Illustrator, especially adding typography, adding color, making your lines, once you create it with the pen tool, more, fine, more refined, more brush strokes if you want to do brush strokes. So even assign styles to those lines. So when I go in Illustrator and I do File New, I have Recent, I have Saved, I have Web. You can decide which, what do you want, right? If you go in Print, notice your color space. You remember we talked about color modes or color spaces in class in past lectures. If you go in Print, the default color space is CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, and your resolution is a bit higher, right? If you go in a mobile or web, it's going to be RGB and 72. By the way, when I lecture right now, I cannot see you guys because I minimized all the interface so I can basically just see Illustrator. So if you have any question, do not hesitate to interrupt at any given moment. Now, some people might say, hey, Enrica, you taught me that even in print, I could actually use RGB because with color management, once that I print it, it's going to be converted. So I want a bigger color space that I know RGB is bigger. So you could go in there and change it. It gives you this warning that means it's not the default, but that doesn't mean anything. You can still do it. It's no biggie, right? So I'm going to say create for the sake of it. And it's going to create this.
Excuse me?
Yes?
Are the week 3 and 4... week 3 and 4 discussions supposed to be due on the same day?
Yeah, the week, generally the way our classes run, the second day of the week is the project. Generally the first day of the week is the discussion, but I have to admit this week might be different because of the story that we had, the strike. You know what I mean? Let me see what I have on Canvas because I did really ponder it and think about it. So 1 second. This week is slightly different because of what happened, right? The fact that Monday we skipped classes. There we are. So the exercises are always due on a Sunday. The discussion is generally due the first week of the week, the first day of the week. So in this case, Tuesday. And the work in progress on the project is always due on a Thursday. You'll see that when your project is final, means when you're ready to turn in the last file, I try and give you all the way to the Sunday for that one. So the routine for this class is going to always be first day of the week, we have the discussion due. The second day of the week, we have the progress on the project. And the Sunday, we have the exercises unless we're done with the project. In that case, we also have the project due. Is that clear?
I was asking about the week 4 discussion because it has the same due date as the week 3 discussion.
It's because of don't worry about it. Right now, no, it doesn't. I think I changed it last night. They did for a while, but because of the strike, I had to kind of start maneuver around to try to figure out deadlines. But then I put it back. I don't know if you are in the same class I am right now, but you should be. The week 3 things are due on the 23rd, 28th, and 25th. Versus these one are due week 4 are due on the 31st, the 4th, and the 1st of February. Do you see that?
Oh, yeah, okay. It's just that the week 4 discussion, if you see like below the title, it says January 23rd and 2 points.
Oh, sorry. It's because I apologize. I changed the title, but I forgot to change the... Yeah, with the story of the strike, I had to do a bit of maneuvers, as you can imagine. Means I had to kind of change dates around. And so let me go in there, hit edit, and change it. Thanks for catching it. I appreciate it. So it's due on January 31st. Let me down. Yeah, I didn't change just one date. I had to change all the dates for both classes back first for the strike and then back to what they were. And I forgot this one date. So I really appreciate that you pointed it out. All right, but now all is clear. Are we good, everyone?
Yep.
Thank you so much. Thanks for catching it. I really appreciate when you guys help me. All right, so what I was talking about was Illustrator and the fact that at this point, what I want to show you is how do you add typography to your file, right? So if you look at your tools, one of the tools is the type tool. And if you hold on to the type tool, you'll see that has, it's funny, I'm tempted to say type fool instead of type tool. It has the regular type tool. It's called the point type, the area type, and the path type. And then you have them also in vertical format. Don't worry about the touch type tool that is more advanced, and the advanced tools you'll see I'll teach later in the quarter. So let's go with just these three that are repeated, horizontal or vertical. They're really easy. So the type tool, you just, click on this, on the tool, and then click and start typing. Now, by default, it puts a bogus text. They call it lorem ipsum. It's supposed to be Latin, but you'll see that when we have it as area, it's going to be just, bogus Latin. It's not even Latin. It's weird. So let's say I want to write my name. I just start typing Enrica Lovaglio Costello and whatever I want to type. So my point is, you just go and type. Obviously, down here at the fingerprint, what you can do is you can double click on it to select it. And you can say, hey, I want to use Avenir. For example, is a type that I really tend to like. And I want it to be, size 18 or even bigger. Let's do it 48. And right here, you can kind of show more properties than the entire panels. But for the sake of it, right now, I'm going to leave it as it is. So I'm going to go in here. And actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make it a nice thick type, like Arial Black, so that I can manipulate it later. I'm going to show you a demo in which I can kind of play with the typography even more. So that's the type tool that is considered point type, because you click and type. Now, if you had an area right here, so you created a rectangle, you can go with the area type tool. And when you go over the rectangle, you'll see that this kind of weird, you see a little cursor with this dotted circle. What it means is that it's going to put your type, that is the cursor part, inside the container. So when you click here, it does the same thing. The lorem ipsum by default has that formatting I just applied, but I can obviously go in here and say, no, I don't want Arial, I want Futura, and definitely not 48. I want, 21, for example. And obviously, you can leave the lorem ipsum, I doubt it, or you can paste whatever you have in your copy and paste. If you created something in Microsoft Word that you want to paste in here, that's one way to do it. Or you can go in and type, just like I did, right? Now, notice one quick thing. I'm going to make another container right here. So if I keep typing, and by the way, if you go back to the type tool and click in here, you can keep typing. There will be a point in which you see this very strange plus sign, very tiny, and even if you zoom in, it's still tiny, that shows up. That what it means is that your type is actually going outside of the box. So what you want to do is you want to go with your white arrow. Remember, the black arrow select an object as a whole, versus the white arrow select the subpart of the object, in this case, the overflow, right? So I want to take the white arrow and I'm going to click on here. And now it's telling me, okay, the overflow is loaded onto my cursor. You guys see that little paragraph? And you can click on another box and all of a sudden, somehow I did not click on the edge of the box. I apologize. So it just created the box for me. If I had clicked on right at the edge, it would have put it here. It doesn't make a big difference, right? Because once you have this box, you can still put it where you want to. And you can make it as big or as small as you want, and you can format the text, and you can do whatever you want. But be aware that when you see a little plus sign on a box of text, it's no good. It's basically you have to find a way to fix it, because likely there's a piece of your text that is not actually visible. Another thing we can do is we can create like a spiral down here, or any shape for the matter. And then I go with the type on path tool, and I'm going to click right here, and again you can see that puts lorem ipsum dollar blah blah, and that means then you can go in and type instead whatever you want. Now what if you have a banner situation? Same story, guys. Here, do you guys see that? Let me actually zoom in. You might see it even better. It's telling me right there is an overflow. How can I fix it? There are multiple ways to fix it. When you have type on a path, you have this weird line right here. This is the opening of the text, and this is the closing. That is why the plus sign is at the closing, because it tells me it's not really closing because there is an overflow. So one way you can do is you can grab the beginning and shuffle it, pull it back, so all of a sudden the ending of the text is actually, as you can see, it's not going out to the end of the path. It means the path ends and the text ends before then. If it ends later is when there is the clipping occurring and that plus sign. So be aware that you can control things. You can also control this last line. You might say, I want the text to actually stop right here, but then now we have the same issues of the clipping, right? Now, if I clicked on here, let's say again, let me create another path, this time with a pen tool. What I could do here again, I can click on, sorry, did I hit enter? Yes, I did. Okay, if I click with my area type right here on that, in fact, let's activate it so we can see what's going on. Boom. So now I could click on here with the white arrow, boom, and it's telling me now I have it loaded, and now you can click on a different path and you can see is in the difference path. And even then, you can control those straight line to decide where the type goes. So this is kind of a, beautiful feature, but I am showing it with generic shapes. But remember, I'm going to delete it all right now. Imagine that you have right now a beautiful banner that you created and has this very nice shape like that and like this, and then like kind of curves inside and does this. I'm just guessing something, all right? Say that your banner has a really kind of interesting shape like this, right? And you want the text to kind of flow inside this banner. I'm going to invert the fill and the stroke so we can see the inside. One thing you could do is you could create a kind of a curvy shape that is the obviously the shape you want where the text needs to go inside the banner, right? So you create kind of an extra shape right here. And then you go with your type tool on the path right here, and you type raccoon karate. I don't even remember, how do you spell raccoon? I don't know. And then obviously you can go in there and format it. You can say I want something really nice. And by the way, if you highlight the typeface and you use the arrow key down, it shows you all the typefaces you have in there, and you can choose the one you want. Let's say I like this one, but instead of 21, I want it 36. And let me do Command T to get the text palette. And you'll see you also have right here a baseline option, which you can say I want it to go down. That is, the baseline is generally where your text sits on, and you can make it go down. Now it's too big, as you can see, goes past the banner, so maybe we can do a 27. Let's see if it's better. Yeah, it's better. Now, what else can you do? As you can see in this palette, you can choose, this is the point size, right? So you can say I want a 28. This is the distance between the lines of text, and I'll demonstrate it on here. This one is the distance between the letters. This is called tracking. Tracking is the distance between the letters. In fact, let me write that down. Tracking, is the horizontal between characters or letter, whatever you like. Doesn't need to be 28, huh? 18 is plenty. So that's tracking. And it's a sign when you have a piece of text selected that you can simply double click on it and it gets selected. You might say, hey, listen, I want a little bit more spacing. You see, I assigned 50. The way I generally assign tracking and leading and kerning, that I'll tell you in a minute, is I use the option key and hold the option key down and use the arrow keys to go tighter or looser. As you can see, use the arrow keys and it allows you to go one way or the other. So we learned this is tracking, and now it's 110, so it's huge. This is the distance between the line. In this case, we have only one line, doesn't matter. But how do I change it if I have multiple lines? Same story. You select the lines, and then you can use option, and this time the arrow key is up and down instead of left and right. Or obviously, you can go in and manually say, I want, like 36 right there. Right? So you can specify numerically, or you can specify by eyeballing it by using option and the up and down arrow key. And that's called leading. So what is leading? And I know it's pronounced weird because it sounds more like a leading, but it's leading. Is the vertical line, the vertical distance, between lines. lastly, we have something called kerning that is a close brother to tracking because this is also horizontal. Let's say I want to create a design effect, and between the R and the A, I want extra space. I double click between the A and the R and pay attention to this currently 0 field. Holding Option and left or right arrow keys, I can add or remove this thing called kerning. Right now, I use the arrow key to space them more. That is the right one. And I got 416 kerning. There's a bit too much, isn't it? But that's kerning. And that's generally a design effect. It's something you do because you want to, create some really interesting design things. It's not used as much as the other two, but it's just still as powerful and important when you need it. So this one also is the horizontal distance, but this time is between pairs of letters or characters, right? So these are really important terms that you will probably, especially if you're in graphic design, have to know inside out. It's really kind of important. Now, some of you might say, wait a minute, the problem I have here is my weird banner is tapering and the text is not. So how can I do that? Because, you can see it's not something you can make the D smaller, right? It's the typography designed by whoever designed this particular typeface. So you cannot really tweak it too much, but actually you can. So let me go back to my name. So right here, my name, let me actually copy it so you can see the difference. Option click will copy it, right? So here I can double click and name it, change it to be whatever I want it to be, because this is live text. But if I want to change it to be kind of like something else, like here, when I want to make the word kid a little bit, the tapering smaller or whatever, one thing I can do is turn the type into outline. And that will lose the ability to be live, to be editable, but then you can do whatever you want, because at that point, those letters become like paths. So Command-Shift-O allows you to convert to outline. Pay attention, when I select this text right now, it's just like a box. But now when I do Command-Shift-O, it turns into a series of paths. You saw them flashing for a second. There they are. So now, if I wanted to make a certain one smaller, like I say, hey, I want to make the, let me actually go with a white arrow. There's always my friend, right? Especially when I have subparts. So if I want to kind of change, in this case, like make it different, make it more interesting.
Could you go over how you made them paths again?
Command-Shift-O is one way, and that's my favorite way. Or you can select it and go in Object. I'm sure it's somewhere. I just don't remember. Oh, Type. Create outlines right here. It's the same thing. You can see it's Command-Shift-O. So this allows you to create outlines. So what you want to do is select the text that you want to convert to outline and do Command-Shift-O, and all of a sudden is a series of basically path. The downside is if you want to edit it, if you say, hey, I want to change the low value to something, now it's not editable text anymore. So that's the only, inconvenience part. So, so that's kind of like type for now. Now, if you go and look on Canvas in week 3 learning resources, that are always where we start our classes, right? We're trying to get a routine going. Here you can play the text formatting, text wrap. All these are stuff that you can play with typography. So let me actually download them really quick and show you these. And then we go into colors and other things. Today's going to be, as usual, a bit of a long lecture because there's a lot to cover, but I don't have many more long lectures. Means I think in the future we're going to be more geared, at least for Illustrator, to basically focus on your projects coming together and obviously practicing. So I don't want to add a lot more. I think Illustrator is pretty beautiful, but it can be pretty scary if you cover too much. So always try not to cover too much. Okay, so I want you to open exercise 6, text formatting. You notice that now all the files that download will have the AI extension. In the past weeks it didn't, because I wanted to pretty much drill in your head that if you find a file without the extension, you can always tweak and manipulate it. I always want to make you guys a little bit also into problem solver or little hackers, whatever you call it, But notice how this text has an X when I mouse over it. right? What it means is it was placed a long time ago and is perceived as more like an image than real text. So how do I fix that? If I double click on it, it will tell me editing may cause layout changes. Just say update. So this is done again on purpose. It means I could have put there a file with the text that was no biggie, then there was no hurdle. But I'm showing you the hurdles because there will be days in which you receive a file that is not fully compatible with your system, and you need to know that sometimes just simply double clicking on it, especially if you see the X, is going to fix it. So if you hit update, now it did fix it, but not completely. You can see it has all this pink stuff, right? And you might wonder, what is the pink stuff? The pink stuff is because the person that created this text, by the way, is me, did it with a font that does not exist on my computer. I don't know if it exists on yours, because we all have different fonts we download it. So sometimes you'll open files, and when it's all highlighted in pink means you gotta fix it, because otherwise when you go and print it or do anything, it's not gonna look right? Because it has a missing font, pretty much. How do you fix this? You have to reformat it. Obviously, you could go and download the font that was used in the first place, or you can pretty much, now here, if you highlight it, you see it is actually a myriad Roman, and it has this weird diamond shape next to it. I do have myriad as a font family, but I don't have that Roman option. That is why that thing is there. Now I could go and download it, or I could say, hey, look, let me just find a different font that is a bit faster. So instead of myriad and Roman, let's go in. Let me find something that like Myriad Pro, that is actually the default, I think, in Apple. Once you have finally the font that looks okay, then you can obviously go and format it. Like you say, hey, this is going to be the title, so it has to be a little bit bigger, has to be actually semi-bold. This part here, I want it to be spaced a little more. Remember, option down arrow key will space it more. I want to add a little bit of tracking because there's none right now, right? Right now I can see that the point size is 10, the leading is 18, but the tracking is still 0. Now trust me that adding a little bit of tracking the majority of the time actually makes the text easier to read, easier on the eye. So you can hold option, and again, this time right arrow key to increase a little bit of the tracking. And right now we're at 40, right there. And again, if you felt like, hey, I want the siren to have a really large S, you can select the S and say I want it to be 14, or actually even bigger. Let's go with something really awfully big. And I want it to be actually bold. And I want the word S-I, the I there to be spaced a whole lot more. I use option arrow key, and you can see that we're spacing it more or less. At least right now it says the space 160. So remember, these values do matter to make your text more readable or less readable, and formatting your text is something quite important. I always feel sorry when I see the tracking at 0, because most of the time means the designer hasn't even thought too much about those values. That is a bummer, right? Because generally you don't leave it at 0 if you pay attention to it. So that was formatting exercise 6, so it was really quick. Let's go with exercise 7. No, where is 7? Right here. In the 7, I want to show you how to create a text wrap. Is everybody with me so far? Hello? Anybody there?
Yes, we're with you.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. I'm going to go here, and I have the same problem, right? So I double click, I say update. I'm going to command A, that means select all. And instead of AT, CS, and S, whatever, I'm going to go and actually do make it into Avenir. And now you make it into whatever you want, guys, obviously. We're all going to, be different in terms of whatever font we like best. I know, I'm sure you have preferences. Right here shows me that the text is clipped. So I have two options there. I can obviously grab onto the box and make it bigger. Boom. And make it quite a bit bigger right there. Or I could have made the type smaller. The reason why I did not want to make the type smaller is because this is already size 10. Remember that overall the font size of most books is 11 or 12. So when you start going below, it starts being a bit small, but don't also go too much above. It means I've seen students have a large body of text, and just because they want to fill the whole page, because they have a hard time with empty space, that is actually the most precious ally of a designer, they blow it to 16 or 18. And I tell them, gosh, you're screaming there. Just don't scream, try to keep it elegant, keep it small. So another thing that I've noticed here that is kind of a bummer is the tracking is 0, but also you notice up here in this type palette that the leading is in parentheses. So I know that I have a 10 points size for the font, but the distance between the lines at the moment, nobody specified it. When there's a parenthesis, means there was nobody intentionally setting something there. So the software puts something by guess or default. But when you see parentheses, definitely no good. So what are we going to do? We're going to double click in here so that the type tool, by the way, notice right here, right, that if I'm with a black arrow and I need to go in the type, I don't need to go and select the T tool. If I simply double click in the box, all of a sudden it turns into the T tool. Now I need to select it all. Command A would select it all, and then I can go and specify the leading. Now, what is the rule of thumb for leading? The rule of thumb for leading is that you try to always think of keeping it to the minimum. Means you don't want it to be too big, but also you don't want it to be too small. So a rule of thumb that I've been teaching my student is for small text, that means 11, 12, 10, you generally go at least 3 points higher. So if we have 10, you want to go at least 13, probably 14 would be better. So let's try to click on 14, and you can see it's more readable. You have more breathing space. Now, we got again the problem with the plus. That means the text has an overflow. We'll fix that. But I recommend you think about, always setting this leading, because it's really, really, important, as well as the tracking. So tracking, you can decide even to go with 5. But space out the letter horizontally a little bit as well, because it really helps making your text more readable. And now what I'm going to do right now is make it this a little bit wider so that there is no clipped text, no plus sign there. Is everybody with me? Did you guys kind of formatted the text?
Yep.
Any text that ever comes into your files, anything you bring into your file, remember you always want to format it. That means think about, okay, I got to give it a leading, and if the size of the text is 12, I should go at least 15, 16. Sometimes if you want to really give it more breadth, you can go up to 18 with a 12. And then you want to give it a little bit of tracking for sure. Now, what if I want to take this logo right here, boom, and I'm going to actually group it. I don't know if it's grouped. Let me see, so I don't have to worry about falling apart, being in different pieces. So it's already grouped. That's perfect. And let's see, I want to put it on top of my text, and I want the text to go around it. What I can do is, it would be very difficult for the text to go, it can do it, but it would be tricky to go around all the leaves of the palm trees. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm actually going to take a oval, an ellipse, and put it around this, and obviously switch stroke and fill so that I can see what's going on. In fact, I'm going to actually remove the stroke. It has nothing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this shape that I want the text to go around. I'm going to shift click the text, and then I'm going to go under type and text wrap. This should be here. So funny. To be honest, they moved it around a few times, and so I always lose it. And sure enough, maybe it's object text wrap. Sorry. There it is, text wrap. It seems to me would make more sense to have it under type, and over the year has gone back and forth, and that's why sometimes I think, okay, where did they put it now? So if I hit make, what it's going to do is says, the text will wrap around all objects in the current selection, including the type object. So I'm going to say okay. And as you can see what it did, it added the text wrap and added even a little bit of breathing space around that oval I created. And the reason why is because if actually I tried to make it go around the palm tree, and the text was going straight attached to that leaf, it would have looked really, really ugly. So now if I deselect, as you can see, now I have a text wrap that is even live. Means if I move the text, my object stays still, just in case I've obviously wanted to place it differently. That's one way to go. Another way to go is to actually select, oops, one second. Wait, go with the Y arrow and select actually the container, and as usual, you can actually edit the container, can do whatever you want. You can kind of decide how tight you want to be around that logo of the tropical sweets. But bottom line, that's kind of a simple text wrap, nothing a rocket scientist, but I wanted you to know that exists. All right, so now that the type part, you have just the basics. I know you need more, and we will go into more, don't worry. But for now, I wanted to just keep things simple for the mascot. Remember, we carry Illustrator throughout pretty much the whole quarter, so it's not the end. But for the mascot, I want to keep it to, I want to teach you the pen tool for the lines. I want to teach you the type in a pretty basic shape. And obviously, I want to teach you how do you fine-tune those lines, and how do you add colors. Right? So that's kind of where I'm going next. I wonder if I should give you a little bit of a break. Let's just do the lines and then we do the color after. So stay with me another, it's 12:50. Let's, stay together until 1, then I'll give you a 15 minutes break and then I come back, okay? I come back with the color. All right, so if I create a new file, that means I'm not really necessarily practicing on anything that I already made for you. You can follow me for sure this way also. You don't have to download anything, no stress. Then I create this line. Return. And I'm going to copy it a few times so that I can show you different style. How do you make this line taper? Means what if I don't want it to be this kind of solid, boring thing, right? If I go in here and zoom in, she's all the same width all along. Nothing spectacular. But what I can do is something I showed you in the past. Do you remember when we did the very first class? We selected the pond, another object in a file I had handed to you, so you learned about layers and how to move things across layers. And that pond had a bunch of grass, and it was really not looking good. And so I taught you that up here in the option bars, when you have a path selected, you can decide the thickness of the path, a no-brainer, right? You can say, I want it thicker. But you can also say, hey, and I want it kind of tapered a certain way. Now, if you go and look, it looks much, much better right now than the other two, just by doing like very quick, no-brainer effort type of thing, means minimum effort. And you can obviously give it whatever tapering you want. You have multiple one here. And down here, you can also specify, hey, look, I kind of want a little bit of a, stroke that looks like it's done with crayons. And you can do that too. Another way to go is to use this beautiful tool. Is right here. It's called the width tool. It's Shift W. The width tool allows you to determine, because let's say in here, and actually let me go back to without the stroke, without the crayon. If I go in here, you can see that is really thin here, a little bit thicker here, and then continue thicker, and then it goes thinner. But let's say I told you, hey, I want this guy to be a lot thicker. You don't have control over just one part of the path. Everything gets assigned based on this profile that someone created for you, and I can show you later on, again, not all together this class, but I also will show you how to create your own, brushes. These are called brushes, or, styles of the line. So if you wanted this one to be a lot thicker, your best bet is to use the width tool. So you go in here, and notice when you click and drag, what happens. Allows you to determine how thick you want a certain part of your path. And if this one needed to be really thick, but the rest really, really thin, you can again click and drag, and decide all along this path how your thicknesses kind of behave. And the thing that I love of this tool is that you also can change it at every given moment. So let's say I got this, but I say, oh my God, I really don't like it here. You can go back in with your width tool and say, this one, I want it to be actually bigger or smaller. You can go in and refine tune. You can also scoot the thickness up and down. You might say, look, actually the thickness was right, but it was so abrupt. And if I spread it out a little bit more, it's going to look better. You kind of follow me, right? That this tool is incredibly powerful because it allows you to basically select in like a few clicks exactly how you want your line to be. You have full control. That is pretty amazing. Another way to go is, so we kind of learn this way, we learn this way. There's a third way to go that is a little bit kind of, you have a bit less control, but you have a lot of choices. And you can make your own. Do you remember when earlier I said, oh, I'll show you how to make your own styles, right? So if we go under Window, we can find something called, you scroll down, Brush Libraries. In brush libraries, and you also have graphic styles, we'll talk about that too, but this one is for the brushes. It applies to just a stroke. So we're going to go with brush libraries. Graphic styles applies to much more. So I will show you later. But if I go in arrows or artistic, let's go in artistic and choose, for example, chalk, charcoal, and pencil. So this palette shows up that tells you, hey, how do you want it to be? And you have this selected. All you have to do is click, and it's going to apply whatever style you want. And I went just in this one, in the chalk. If I can go back to brush libraries and say, instead of chalk, I don't like it, I want a bristle brush. Or I want some interesting borders. Let's go with decorate borders. Right now, you could take that and make it into a border just like this. Or just like this. As you can see, Illustrator is incredibly generous, has a lot of pre-made things, and is outstanding in allowing you to make your own, borders or whatever else. And just like the swatches, you guys remember that when I created, actually I haven't talked about colors yet. I'm going to do that after the break. But I'll show you, we did it in the past with gradients. I created a certain color, and I simply dragged it into the swatches palette. We did that. And that added it. Same for here. I can create a pattern here, a border pattern, and drag it onto this interface, this palette, and all of a sudden at the very bottom I have my own. So it's kind of really very intuitive. I love how Illustrator, I would say, I like to say simple, but someone might argue it's simple because you used it a lot. I'm just saying that you have a lot of power at your fingertip, and if you want to change it to be whatever you want to be, you can, because you can do your own and then drag it onto here and apply it over and over again. Also, you can change the profile. So let's say you did that and your client says it's great, but I don't like this curve, is too deep, I want it a little bit more flat. Boom, you go in and change it. And that's when it's really important to have the minimum amount of anchor points, right? Because if this curve was made out of 10 anchor points, it would be a lot harder to change, borderline impossible. So
I have a question
please.
About the brush patterns.
Yes.
So if you choose one that has colors, and for instance, you really like the pattern, but you don't like the colors which are used with it, can you change which colors are on that pattern?
Absolutely. So let me go in there. Let me go in decorative. No, where were we? Borders. Sorry, I got it. Decorative. So remember here, you can always, go in here and then you can double click on it. And you see that when you double click on it, you go into something called isolation mode. What this means is you're inside your canvas. In fact, this is your canvas. If you go back, if you hit this back arrow, you're going one level up. That means you end up in the back to the canvas. But when you double click on something, it brings you inside the something. And then you can zoom in there and change it. It's called isolation mode. So you can go in, and right now it's probably grouped and you would have to explode it. Let me see if you have to explode it, or there are two ways to kind of change groups. One is, this is kind of something else. So I cannot show you right now how to modify because you don't know yet appearance, palette, and other things. But yes, you can change it. Bottom line is, I will just have to cover a little bit more ground for you to get there. Does it make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Good thinking. Good question. All right. I promised you I was going to give you a little break, and it's 12:58. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you right now let me actually get out of the screen sharing and kind of first and foremost collect if anybody has any question. Do you guys have any question? Okay. So let me give you that break. Let's even go to that 1:15. And then when we come back, we go into colors. Okay? All right. See you in 15 minutes. Bye.